Today, I am talking about when part of you feels confident, worthy, enough, and at other times, if not the same time, you feel insecure, anxious, frustrated. I see this all the time when people are really clear that I want to change this area of my life. I want to move forward here, but there's a big however. However, I'm too afraid. However, I don't know how. And it can be really difficult when we've got this inner conflict, right? And for sure, when it comes to attachment work and the work that I'm doing with people, many times we are looking at that inner conflict. So, hello if you are joining me live. We today are discussing the fourth skill that I work with people around when it comes to moving from insecure attachment, anxious and or avoidant, towards secure attachment. So being able to show up with more meaning, more vulnerability, more confidence in your relationships, better self-esteem with yourself. And this fourth skill is what I'm teaching inside Becoming Secure, which we start next week. That's crazy. So a huge part of the recovery work where I support people, it involves a school of thought in terms of the approach that I use. Okay, I have a very holistic approach. I've been through many different types of training and courses over the years. And one thing that really stands out is parts work. You may or may not know about it. I will be diving into it in a lot more detail inside Becoming Secure, but this is a school of thought, a modality that is used a lot when it comes to trauma work, when it comes to healing attachment injuries, that relational type of work, So if you're someone where you know that a lot of the time you have forgotten yourself, abandoned yourself, rejected yourself in so many different ways, perhaps. You might do that at work, you might do that in your relationships. It can vary for each person. It might be all areas of your life. Parts work allows us to begin to understand why we might be conflicted, to begin to understand why we act one way, feel another way, want to be another way. Parts work, like it helps us to understand that inner child, that voice that almost, it makes it feel like at the time that it makes us act in certain ways when we act out of character. And for the most part, we might not feel like ourselves, or you might feel confused about, is this myself? Is this my anxiety? Is this a boundary? Is this my intuition? Is this my inner critic? It can be really confusing. Yeah. And there is some humanness here as well. For many therapies, modalities that use parts work, the idea is that we have like different psyches, if you like, and these different parts protect us, they defend, they go into a state of having your best interests at heart, but their strategies are not always best placed. Yeah, their mission to protect you, their mission to get their needs met. That anxious part of you that wants to reach out to someone when you're like, but I know better. But there's something in you, there's a part of you that feels out of control. It's language we're using here to make sense of something. So the work that we're going to be particularly looking at inside Becoming Secure, and that I help with people a lot, is very much around those younger parts, those inner protector parts. It can seem like they have their own thoughts, feelings, impulses, their needs. If any of you have done inner child work, then you know, right? It can seem like that inner child part of you literally takes over when you're triggered. It can feel like it's out of your control, but it's not. It's not out of your control, especially when we introduce parts work. So I love this for attachment work because it's a concept that can really help us to understand where we are stuck in the past, where we are behaving in ways and thinking in ways that are out of alignment with who we are today. When I want to go on a date and I want to say, my favorite music, my favorite food, what type of holidays I like, but I am too afraid because part of me believes that this is going to push someone away, or part of me believes that I'm going to be abandoned again. This kind of work allows us to step into ourselves. It allows us to recognize when that part is activated. And when we have that inner conflict and we feel confused, it can be less confusing when we begin to communicate with ourselves with this language of, okay, I'm recognizing that part of me, another example, part of me wants to go to the gym today, part of me doesn't want to go to the gym today. Rather than beating ourselves up and getting all confused and be like, who am I? We can learn to understand what we're experiencing in this moment. And then there are tools and strategies we can use to communicate with the different parts of us that are activated in these moments. So I use part of this modality, and you literally see people like coming back to self. You start to figure out what it is that you want, what it is that you think, versus when you're being overtaken by inner critic, anxiety, inner child. So it's starting to really figure out in each moment what is driving you. In each moment, where is this sensation in my body coming from? How much am I merging with this part? We become, if we're really, really anxious, if somebody hasn't, let's keep using the same example that we've been using with the other skills last week. If someone counsels on you and suddenly you've gone from feeling calm, soothed, and suddenly you don't feel like yourself and you are like crippled with thoughts of not being good enough, of everyone leaving you. In that moment, we become merged with this part, right? The part that believes that everyone leaves, the part that feels that we're not good enough. We're not that. We don't always feel like that about ourselves. We have moments where we recognize who we are, right? We have moments. And then we have times where we become so merged with these parts that struggle with trust, struggle with relationships that are stuck in the past. So we get lost, we become so insecure. And for me, understanding these different parts of us is really the foundations of being able to reparent ourselves, being able to meet ourselves, these different parts with compassion, with love. The idea is that all parts of us are welcome. And when we begin to recognize that our self is not these parts. When we're triggered, when we're activated, it's our humanness, it's our trauma, it's our pain. And if we can unmerge, which is what I will teach you to do inside Becoming Secure, I will teach you, just like I teach my clients, how to unmerge in those moments when it feels like time has stopped or you've been severely triggered and you've left your body. Yeah. So we'll be using inside Becoming Secure a combination of language, inner communication techniques, meditation, inner relationship focusing, all these different ways to begin to manage these parts of us that can become so triggered. Why don't we have a little example with each other now? So why don't you bring to mind a trigger that you've had recently? Bring to mind something that, has been activating you. And when you have that in your mind, I want you to recognize, if it's possible, depends on your relationship with yourself at the moment, but if it's possible, where do you feel this trigger in your body? How do you know that this part is activated? How is it letting you know? Is it a tightness in your chest and not in your stomach? Maybe you feel really constricted, really tense. How is this part letting you know that it's activated? And as you're aware of it, and when you know of this trigger and where it's sitting in your body, meet it without judgment. Meet it without judgment. This is not who you are. This is an experience that your body is having, but it's not who you are. And when you become aware of this part that's activated, you can begin to communicate with it. Often we just spiral with it, but I'm saying, what if we pulled back and we paused and we met it with curiosity when we're activated, when something happens in our lives? And you might ask it questions. And yes, this can sound strange if this is brand new to you, but ask this part, what is it that you're afraid of? And you can use, a hand on the heart. You can use that self-touch to communicate, to soothe. And you can just ask, what does this part want for you? What is it afraid of? What does it want for you? And you can see what comes to you. If this is brand new to you, if you are brand new to parts work, then it might be that it's difficult to connect at this time. You might be, quite disconnected with your emotions at this time. That's okay. You can ask this part, what does it need? When it's activated, when it's triggered, ask, what do you need? Separate yourself from it, not I am anxious. Recognize that there's something in you, there's a part of you that feels anxious, but it's not all of you. It's often a part that's stuck in the past, like I've said, a younger part, a critical part. And just having this conversation, we are saying to this part that has otherwise been rejected, I see you, I hear you, I get you. And that is compassion, and that is kindness. And this is one of the ways that we begin to heal our anxious, insecure parts. We start to say, I hear you, and we start to ask questions, not why, not ruminating. We get really curious. Guys, if you want to dive deeper into parts work, it is perhaps one of the more complex skills. But inside becoming secure, there will be training, there will be tools to really help you to communicate with these parts of you. This is how we become whole. This is how we get to know ourselves. This is how we heal. It's really effective. It's been one of the greatest parts of my own journey, let alone how I support other people. And if you want to dive more into this and you want to develop this really unique and incredible skill for healing attachment wounds, then you are invited to join Becoming Secure. This is the last week to join now. And I don't want to rush you. It's just that, I'm starting next week. I have to have a start date. And so this is the last week. If you want to work with me May, June, July, this is your opportunity. So go to the link in the bio on my Instagram or the description, if it's podcast or YouTube, and click that link. The price is about a price of 7 therapy sessions, if they were like 70 quid on average, right? The price of this course is 7 therapy sessions, and you're going to get so much, from training to resources to support to our live calls. You can get them on replay if you can't make it live. There's so much. Check that out. I will be back here tomorrow with the next skill. I hope to see you on Becoming Secure. I would love, love, love to work with you if this is speaking to you.